My daughter-in-law slammed the bedroom door so violently that the frame trembled, and in that instant, as her sharp, irritated voice cut through the hallway, I felt something inside me twist in a way I could no longer ignore. Everyone in this house walked on eggshells around her except me, and for the first time, I wondered whether I had somehow become the problem, or whether I had simply become invisible in my own home. My name is Helen Carter, a mother of 8 who believed that only love could hold a family together. For decades, I devoted myself to raising my sons, protecting them, and providing a home where they could always feel safe. But somewhere along the way, I became a guest in a life I helped build. This is the story of how it all fell apart, and how, in the most unexpected way, we found our way back to each other. Then again, moments like this never begin with shouting. They start quietly, like hairline fractures under paint, ignored until the wall finally splits open. But that moment, Emily yelling at my son because he bought the wrong brand of bottled water, was when the truth finally reached me. I stood at the kitchen counter, the scent of fresh ginger tea rising around me, the steam wrapping itself around my fingers as I stirred. I had made that tea for her, and she didn't even notice. Emily, 27, elegant, always perfectly styled, speaking fast and expecting the entire world to match her pace, was adored by my family from the moment she entered it. My husband boasted about her job and education. My sister-in-law treated her like precious royalty. And my son Michael loved her with the kind of devotion that made me both proud and worried. I admired her too once. That was before things shifted, before the balance in our family bent so far toward her that I began to wonder where I was supposed to stand. But this story isn't about only one daughter-in-law. There was another woman, a softer presence, one who drifted in and out of my home without ever demanding anything. Her name is Sarah, my older son's wife. Quiet, gentle, endlessly polite, yet never quite mine, because she belonged so fully to her own mother. She called her mother several times a day, visited her every weekend, and moved through life wrapped in a comfort I had no part of. 2 daughters-in-law, one pampered by my family as if she were a fragile queen, the other held so closely by her own mother that I sometimes felt like a neighbour, not a second mum. And somewhere between them stood me, feeling like a shadow in the home I spent my life building. That morning, when Emily's shouting echoed through the staircase, her voice rising with irritation over bottled water, I tried to keep my focus on chopping vegetables. But the sound only grew sharper. "You never listen, Michael. I said the blue label kind." The knife stopped in my hand as I heard my son's footsteps behind me. When he stepped into the kitchen, his eyes held that same soft apology I had seen too many times. "Mum," he murmured, "she's just stressed." I swallowed. "She's always stressed." He didn't answer, and somehow that silence hurt more than any argument. As he walked away, I stared at the pot of soup simmering on the stove. Emily's favourite, according to everyone in my family. They said it like instructions I was expected to memorise. I had spent months adjusting meals, schedules, habits, my entire rhythm, to make her comfortable. Not because she demanded it, though she sometimes did, but because my own family insisted on catering to her every preference, as if comforting her was a responsibility we all shared, as if pleasing her was the key to our harmony. When Sarah arrived that afternoon with my grandson, the contrast hit me with humiliating clarity. She stepped inside with a soft hello, bent down to untie her son's shoes, and moved through the room with her usual gentle distance. She didn't ask for tea, she didn't hint at needing help, she didn't cling to me the way I once imagined a daughter-in-law might. She wasn't cold, just self-contained, protected somehow by the unwavering love of her own mother. Watching her always stirred a quiet ache inside me, because she had something I used to imagine I would offer to my son's wives, Another home, another mother, another place to belong. Yet she already had all that. Somewhere else. And Emily, well, she absorbed everyone's attention so completely that there was barely room left for me. As the afternoon sunlight filtered through the curtains, I watched Sarah laugh softly with my grandson, her eyes warm but not seeking mine. I heard Emily upstairs, her voice floating down as she complained to a friend on the phone about how stressful her life was. 2 women, 2 worlds, and me, hovering somewhere in the middle, belonging fully to neither. By evening, as we prepared dinner, I felt something shift inside me, a heaviness I couldn't place at first. My husband checked repeatedly if Emily liked the temperature in the living room. My younger son hovered near her, making sure she didn't lift a finger. Meanwhile, Sarah quietly washed dishes beside me despite my protests. She wasn't distant, but she wasn't close either. She treated me with gentle respect, the kind you give someone kind, but not essential. And every time she mentioned her plans to visit her mother the next day, something tugged painfully inside me. After dinner, I slipped into my bedroom and closed the door, leaning back against it. The hallway outside buzzed with life, footsteps, laughter, conversations, but none of it touched me. Not really. I felt like a guest in my own home, standing on the wrong side of a transparent wall no one else seemed to notice. It wasn't jealousy, it wasn't anger. It was something quieter, something colder. A slow, creeping sense of being unneeded. That night, in the dim glow of my bedside lamp, I finally faced the truth that had been building inside me for months. My family had changed, and somehow, without anyone realizing it, I had been left behind. And that realization was only the beginning of everything that came next. The next morning, I woke to the distant sound of voices drifting from the living room. Soft, cheerful, easy. For a moment, I thought they might be calling for me, but when I stepped out, I realized they weren't. My husband was laughing with Emily. The 2 of them bent over a stack of travel brochures on the coffee table. I stood there quietly, unnoticed, watching the sunlight warm the edges of their silhouettes. It should have been a sweet sight. A father-in-law bonding with his daughter-in-law, but instead it pressed against my chest, like a weight I couldn't lift. I walked into the room with a gentle smile, but neither of them looked up. Not when I said, "Good morning?" Not even when I sat down at the far end of the couch. My husband pointed at a photo of a beach resort and said, "Emily, you'd love this. We should go sometime. You deserve a break." She giggled, brushing her hair behind her ear, accepting his affection like she had always belonged here. I admired her confidence, her ease, but I couldn't ignore the sharp ache rising inside me, the awareness that I was somehow outside the frame of my own family's picture. A few minutes later, Michael came down the stairs. He glanced at me briefly, offered a weak smile, then went straight to Emily. He kissed her forehead, asked if she slept well, and she leaned into him as if the world revolved around the space they occupied together. I watched quietly, because what else could I do? When he finally acknowledged me, it was with a quick, distracted, "Morning, Mum," already half turned away. I excused myself to the kitchen, pretending I needed to check something on the stove, though nothing was cooking. I just needed space, a moment to breathe. As I stood there with my hands resting on the counter, I heard the front door open. Sarah and my older son, David, arrived with my grandson. The little boy ran toward me immediately, wrapping his arms around my waist with the kind of innocent affection that can heal wounds without even trying. I held him tightly, grateful for a moment of uncomplicated love. Sarah approached with a polite smile. "Good morning, Helen." Her voice was gentle, careful, like someone approaching a fragile object they didn't want to break. I smiled back, though part of me wished she would step closer, stay longer, let me feel like I mattered beyond polite greetings. but she slipped off her shoes and headed straight to the living room where she sat beside her husband, her shoulder brushing his as she softly asked about his week. Within minutes, she mentioned she needed to leave early to help her mother with some errands. That familiar sting returned, sharp, quiet, unmistakable. I wasn't jealous of her closeness with her mother. I was envious of what it represented, a place she belonged without question, without needing to earn it. I turned back to making breakfast, letting the sound of eggs sizzling drown out my thoughts. The kitchen filled with the scent of butter and toasted bread, and for a moment I found comfort in the simple rhythm of cooking. But when I brought the plates to the table, the pattern repeated itself. Attention pooling around Emily like she was a gravitational centre. Every compliment came her way. "Helen, this toast is perfect," my husband said, but he said it only after Emily nodded approvingly. "Dad, Mum made this exact kind last week," Michael chimed in, almost defensively, as if Emily's tastes were the standard I had to meet. Even my grandson, sweet as he was, sat beside Emily, captivated by the way she animated her stories. She laughed brightly, her voice filling the room, while Sarah remained softly beside David, participating but never shaping the mood of the space. And me, I floated somewhere in the background, offering food, clearing plates, listening, watching. After breakfast, I retreated to the backyard under the pretense of watering my plants. The winter air bit at my cheeks, crisp and sharp, but I preferred the cold to the heavier chill inside the house. As I watered the roses, I heard the sliding door open behind me. I looked back, hoping, stupidly, that someone had come for me. It was Emily. She stepped out without a coat, her arms folded over her chest. "Helen," she said softly, almost hesitantly, "do you think the family likes me too much?" Her question caught me completely off guard. I blinked at her, unsure whether she was being sincere or manipulative or merely curious. She leaned closer. "Sometimes I feel like everyone treats me like I'm fragile, like I'm some princess they need to protect." Her voice trembled slightly. For the first time, I saw something human in her that I had overlooked. Fear, insecurity, pressure. She wasn't just absorbing the family's affection. She was drowning in their expectations. "I don't always know how to handle it," she whispered. "I don't want to be the cause of tension." That admission softened something in me, but before I could respond, the sliding door opened again. "Em," Michael called. "Babe, you're freezing. Come inside." His voice wasn't rude, but it was dismissive of me, of the conversation we were just beginning to have. Emily gave me a small, apologetic smile before hurrying back into the warmth of the house. I stood alone again, surrounded by the quiet rustle of leaves, wondering if I had imagined the vulnerability in her expression. I wondered how much of her behaviour was pressure, and how much was choice. Later in the afternoon, when the family gathered in the living room, Sarah sat beside me for once. It felt unusual, almost comforting. We talked about my grandson's school, his new drawings, his growing independence. She listened earnestly, nodding, smiling, keeping her hands folded neatly in her lap. But the moment her phone buzzed and she saw the name Mom, she excused herself with a soft apology and walked to the hallway to answer it. And I was alone again. Again. By evening, exhaustion settled into my bones, not from work, but from existing in a space where I felt always present but rarely seen. I went to my room earlier than usual, closing the door quietly behind me. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the faint pattern of light on the wall, thinking about my life, my choices, my sons, my daughters-in-law, wondering how I had ended up here, between loyalty and longing, between two women who had claimed pieces of my family in ways I never anticipated. I didn't know then that everything I was feeling, every ache, every insecurity, was about to collide with a truth far more painful, than being left out. A truth that would shake the foundation of my family in ways none of us were prepared for. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept turning, rearranging my pillow, listening to the faint sounds of laughter drifting up the stairs from the living room. It was past midnight, yet my husband, my sons, and Emily were still awake, talking about a family trip they wanted to plan. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to their excitement, realizing no one had come to ask if I wanted to join. By morning, my eyes felt heavy, but I pretended everything was normal. I went downstairs to make breakfast, expecting the familiar scene, the kitchen quiet, the house still. But instead I found Emily sitting at the dining table with her head resting on her hand, her eyes red and tired. She looked up when I approached, startled. "Oh, Helen, morning," I paused. "Rough night?" She forced a weak smile. "Just thinking about things." Before I could ask what she meant, Michael rushed in. "Babe, you didn't sleep again? Why didn't you wake me?" Emily shook her head quickly. "I'm fine." Michael sighed and wrapped his arm around her shoulders, kissing the top of her head. "You need to take care of yourself." He glanced at me briefly, offering a tight, polite smile. "Morning, Mom." I nodded back, stirring the pot of porridge on the stove, pretending not to hear Emily whisper, "I'm trying. I really am." Something was brewing beneath the surface, something neither of them wanted to say aloud. But before I could linger on it, Sarah arrived with my grandson, carrying a basket of groceries from her mother's garden. "Helen," she said warmly, placing the basket on the counter, "Mom's been harvesting more than she can use. She wanted you to have some." It was a kind gesture, thoughtful, but the ache still flared. I thanked her, pretending not to notice how she kept checking her phone, waiting for her mother's next message. After breakfast, the house split into its usual rhythms. Michael and Emily went out to run errands. David and Sarah took my grandson to the park. My husband left for a quick meeting at the community centre. And once again, the house fell quiet. You'd think the silence would comfort me, but instead it stretched across the rooms like a reminder of everything I wasn't a part of. I cleaned the kitchen, folded laundry, watered the plants, small habitual rituals meant to fill time. But halfway through the chores, I heard the front door open. I thought it was my husband returning early, but when I stepped out of the hallway, I saw Emily standing there alone. She looked pale, breathless. Her hands trembled slightly as she closed the door behind her. "Emily." I stepped closer. "What happened?" She shook her head. "Nothing. I just needed to come back." Her eyes flicked away, avoiding mine. I forgot something." Her voice was too thin, too fragile, and then I noticed her lower lip trembling. "Emily, talk to me," I said softly. "Did something happen?" Her shoulders stiffened. She looked at me then, truly looked at me, and I saw the fear she had been hiding for days, maybe weeks. "Helen," she let out a shaky breath, "do you think your family would still like me if they knew I wasn't perfect?" I blinked, stunned. "What do you mean?" But before she could answer, the door burst open again. Michael stepped inside, his jaw clenched, his eyes dark. He looked at Emily, then at me, and something inside him snapped. "Mum," he said, breath uneven. "Can we talk? Now." The urgency in his voice sent a chill through me. "Of course, what's wrong?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took Emily's hand and guided her to the couch, like she was something fragile he needed to protect. I sat across from them, my heart pounding. Michael ran a hand through his hair. "Mum, Emily and we've been dealing with something we didn't want to burden the family with." Emily's eyes glistened with tears. "My family would support you," I said gently. "Whatever it is, you're not alone." Emily looked down, whispering, "That's what I'm afraid of." Michael tightened his grip on her hand. Emily didn't forget something here. She came home because she had a panic attack. My breath caught. A panic attack? Emily, why didn't you tell anyone? Her eyes filled instantly. Because everyone sees me as this sweet daughter-in-law who has everything under control. I didn't want to disappoint them. Her voice cracked. I didn't want to disappoint you. Something heavy lodged in my chest. Sweetheart, I said softly, you don't have to earn our affection. You don't have to be perfect. But she flinched, not at my words, but at something deeper. Michael cleared his throat. Mum, Emily has been under a lot of pressure. The family showers her with love, attention, expectations, everything. He let out a long exhale, and she feels responsible for living up to it. The world tilted for a moment. I had thought Emily enjoyed the pampering, the attention, the warmth my family gave her. But suddenly I saw the cracks, the laughter that seemed a little too loud, the smile that lingered a little too long, the exhaustion beneath her eyes, the way she never said no, even when she needed rest. I swallowed hard. Emily, why didn't you tell me? She wiped her cheek. Because I thought if I wasn't the perfect daughter-in-law, you'd stop liking me. That sentence hit me with unexpected force. Before I could respond, the door opened again. Sarah returned with David and my grandson, the three of them smiling, until they saw the atmosphere in the room. David froze. Is everything okay? Michael answered before I could. We're fine. Just talking. But Sarah's eyes moved between us with quiet suspicion. She walked over slowly, her arm brushing David's, the way she always grounded, herself through him. For a moment, the room held its breath. Then Emily stood abruptly, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. It's fine. I'm fine. I just need some air. She walked past all of us, out to the garden, closing the sliding door behind her. I followed her with my gaze, the weight of her confession crushing my heart. Because suddenly, everything made sense. Her charm, her obedience, her constant smiles, her exhaustion, her silence. She wasn't thriving in the attention. She was suffocating under it. I wasn't being pushed aside because Emily wanted to take my place. I was being pushed aside because my family had unknowingly placed her on a pedestal so high she no longer knew how to climb down. And I, standing here with my hands trembling, realized something far more painful. Being left out wasn't the real problem. The real problem was that my family had built a perfect role for me, but handed it to someone else. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of the fan, feeling an ache settle in my chest that I couldn't name. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't anger. It was something heavier, something that felt like being slowly erased from the very life I had built. By morning, I had convinced myself that maybe I was overthinking. Maybe Lily wasn't trying to exclude me. Maybe Emily wasn't trying to replace me. Maybe my family wasn't intentionally leaving me out. But that fragile hope cracked the moment I walked into the kitchen and heard laughter. Tight, intimate laughter that only happens when people feel comfortable with each other. My husband, my son, and Lily were gathered around the table. Lily was showing them something on her phone and they were leaning in close, their voices warm and easy. My husband noticed me last. "Oh," he said casually, "you're awake." I forced a smile. "Didn't sleep much." Before I could ask what they were looking at, Lily turned to me with a soft, almost apologetic tone. "Mum, I hope you don't mind. I was planning a spa day with Dad and Nathan. They promised to go with me." A spa day. My husband had never, not once in 30 years, agreed to go to a spa with me. But for her? For Lily? He tapped Lily's shoulder playfully. "I told her I'd go this once. She deserves it. She's been so stressed lately." Stress. Right, so stressed that she had hours for shopping, weekly brunch dates with her friends, and Pilates classes. I swallowed the bitterness before it slipped out. Of course, go have fun. Lily beamed, kissed my husband on the cheek and bounded out of the room. My son gave me a quick hug. Mum, don't wait for us for dinner, okay? We might be late. I nodded, but something inside me quietly broke. When they left, the house fell silent. A strange, hollow silence that felt nothing like peace, more like abandonment. I cleaned the kitchen to distract myself. Then I watered the plants, even though the soil was still damp. Then I sat by the window and watched the driveway, waiting for their car to return, hating myself for waiting. Hours passed. When they finally came home, they walked in carrying shopping bags, expensive ones. Lily twirled in the doorway, glowing. My husband was carrying a pair of matching robes. Nathan had a grin plastered across his face, like he had just won a prize. Mum, Lily said excitedly, you won't believe what happened. The spa had this couple's package, and they insisted we take it. We got a free upgrade. Couple's package. That word stung more than it should have. My husband saw the look on my face and softened his voice, almost patronizingly. It was just for fun. Nothing serious. Nothing serious, right. I helped them put away the bags, but every movement felt mechanical, as if I wasn't living my own life, but watching it from behind glass. Later that evening, after everyone had gone to bed, I walked into the guest room, the one that had become Emily's room after she moved out. The faint scent of her lavender spray still lingered, soft and distant. I sat on her old bed and picked up a small photo frame she'd forgotten to pack. It was a picture of her and her mother, smiling, arms looped around each other, faces glowing with genuine affection. Not the kind I'd shared with her, not the kind I was sharing with my own family. I closed my eyes and let myself feel what I'd been avoiding. I was losing them. Slowly, silently, piece by piece. And the worst part? No one even noticed. The next day, I decided to visit my older son, Jacob, and his wife, Emily. They lived only an hour away, but I rarely went. Not because they didn't welcome me, but because Emily's mother was always there, cooking, helping, laughing, doing everything I used to do. I arrived unannounced. When Emily opened the door, she looked genuinely surprised. Mum, is everything okay? I nodded. I just wanted to see you two, if that's all right. She ushered me inside immediately. The living room smelled like freshly baked bread, and I heard someone moving in the kitchen. I recognized the voice before I saw her, Emily's mother, humming softly. Of course. When she stepped out, holding a tray, her smile was warm and polite. Oh, hello? You didn't tell me your mother-in-law was coming? Emily laughed. She probably wanted to surprise us. I forced a smile, but the moment reminded me exactly why I rarely visited. Every corner of this home already belonged to someone else. Emily served me tea, and we exchanged small talk. But eventually she grew quiet and studied me closely. Mum, she said softly, you look tired. Are you sure you're okay? For a second I almost broke. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I swallowed them. I'm fine, I lied. But she didn't buy it. Is it about Lily? I stiffened. What do you mean? Emily hesitated before answering. Mum, I know how my brother's wife is. She takes up space. People orbit her. She doesn't do it intentionally, but she has this way of pulling everyone in. Her eyes softened. I've seen how Dad treats her. And Nathan. It must feel strange. A tremor went through me. To finally hear someone acknowledge it, someone who saw me, felt like a weight lifting slightly, but only slightly. I lowered my voice. Sometimes I feel like I'm disappearing. Emily reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're not. You're just surrounded by people who forget how much you've done. Her mother cleared her throat awkwardly and excused herself, giving us privacy. Emily leaned closer. "Mum, has something else happened?" And there it was. The moment I realized I couldn't keep pretending. I wasn't fine. I wasn't strong. I wasn't unaffected. I exhaled shakily. "I think I'm losing my family." Emily's expression shifted from concern to something darker, something protective. "Tell me everything." And for the first time in months, someone actually wanted to listen. Emily didn't rush me. She didn't interrupt. She simply sat there, waiting, eyes steady, hands wrapped around her mug, as if preparing herself to hold whatever weight I finally decided to put into words. And somehow, that quiet patience broke the dam inside me. I told her everything, not in a dramatic outburst, not in some trembling confession, just a slow unravelling of all the small aches I'd tucked away for months. The dinners I wasn't invited to, the celebrations I heard about only after they'd passed, the jokes I wasn't included in, the photos posted online where my family looked complete without me. I told her about Lily's spa trip with my husband, the matching robes, the laughter in the kitchen that morning, the way my son had hugged me absent-mindedly as if rushing to get back to her. Emily's expression darkened with every detail, her brows slowly knitting together into a frown she didn't try to hide. "That's not okay," she finally said when I finished. "None of that is okay." I forced a smile. "Maybe I'm being too sensitive." Emily shook her head firmly. "No, you're not imagining this. You're being pushed aside." Her words hit me harder than I expected, because deep down, I already knew it. I had known it for weeks, months. But hearing someone else say it out loud made it real. Emily reached for my hands. "Mum, did Dad or Nathan, did they ever do things like that for you? The spa, the shopping, the closeness?" I hesitated. "Not really. Because you never asked?" I shook my head slowly, because I never thought I needed to. Emily let out a long breath, as if trying to swallow her frustration. "It's like they appreciate other people more when that person demands attention." I didn't respond. I couldn't, because she was right. When I left her house that afternoon, the guilt that had been haunting me for stepping into their space softened just a little. Emily walked me to the door and hugged me for a long time. "Mum," she whispered, "you're not alone, even when it feels like it." Her kindness stayed with me the entire drive home. But when I walked through the front door of my own house, the warmth I'd felt earlier vanished instantly. Lily was in the living room, sitting on the couch with her feet up, a blanket draped over her legs. She was snacking on the pastries I had bought 2 days ago, the ones I'd set aside for myself. My husband stood behind her, massaging her shoulders like she was some delicate princess who had just returned from a battlefield instead of a spa. "Oh, you're home," he said, without even looking at me. Lily tilted her head back. "Mum, you didn't text. We thought you were out shopping." No, I had never once gone on a carefree outing like that in my life. I swallowed before responding. "I went to visit Jacob and Emily." My husband finally paused. "Without telling us?" A strange, subtle irritation flickered in his tone, as if my independence inconvenienced him. "I didn't think I needed to," I said quietly. He opened his mouth to say something, but Lily cut in, laughing softly. "Dad, let her be. Mum's allowed to have fun too." Something in her voice, light, teasing, felt like a thin blade sliding under my ribs. My husband chuckled and continued kneading her shoulders. "You're right, sweetheart. Sweetheart." He hadn't called me that in years, but for her, the tenderness came easily. I excused myself and retreated to my room. I shut the door quietly, not wanting to be dramatic. But the moment I sat on the edge of my bed, a crushing wave of humiliation washed over me. Not because of their actions. No. I'd endured worse. But because I realized something I'd never admitted to myself. My family wasn't just drifting toward Lily. They were choosing her, actively, consistently, thoughtlessly, and I was letting them. That night, I made dinner like always. I set the table. I waited. They came down late, laughing about something Lily had shown them online. They barely noticed the effort I had put into the meal. Halfway through dinner, Lily looked up innocently and asked, "Mum, do you think you could make that lemon chicken again next week? Dad and Nathan loved it." I stared at her, then at my husband, who didn't even glance at me before agreeing. "Yeah, that was amazing." I forced a nod. "Sure." But inside, something snapped, quietly, cleanly, like a thread pulled too tightly for too long. After dinner, while I washed the dishes alone, I heard Lily and Nathan planning another trip. This time to a lakeside cafe they had been wanting to try. Lily's voice floated through the doorway, light and excited. "Should we invite Mom?" Nathan asked. My heart softened for a moment, but Lily's answer was gentle and devastating. "She'll be fine. Besides, you know she prefers staying home." I clutched the edge of the sink. No one corrected her. No one defended me. Not even my own son. Later that night, my husband came into the room. He sat on the edge of the bed, not next to me, but slightly behind me, as if I were a child he needed to comfort. "You need to relax," he said softly. "You're worrying too much." "I'm not," I whispered. He sighed. "Lily's young. She needs guidance. She needs support. And I don't?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. He paused, just long enough to wound me. Then he laughed lightly. "You're strong. You don't need that kind of attention." There it was. The truth. He didn't even try to hide it. I nodded slowly. "I see." He didn't hear the shift in my voice. He didn't sense the way something inside me was quietly dying. He kissed my forehead mechanically, murmured something about getting some sleep, and left the room. When the door closed behind him, I sat alone in the dim silence, staring at the shadows on the wall. My pulse was steady, not frantic, not panicked, just cold. Because in that moment, for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the wife in this family. I didn't feel like the mother. I didn't even feel like the homemaker. I felt like an afterthought, a placeholder, a ghost. And ghosts either disappear or they learn how to be seen. I wasn't ready to disappear. The next morning, I woke up earlier than everyone else, not out of habit, but because sleep refused to stay with me. My mind wouldn't quiet down. Every word from the night before replayed like an echo trapped in a narrow hallway. "You're strong. You don't need that kind of attention." It was almost laughable, the way he said it with such casual confidence, as if dismissing me were an act of love, as if strength meant I no longer needed tenderness, care, presence. I dressed slowly, choosing clothes quietly so I wouldn't wake him. As I buttoned my cardigan, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me didn't seem fragile or broken. She looked tired. Not physically. No. The exhaustion lived somewhere deeper, buried beneath years of silence and selflessness. When I walked into the kitchen, Lily was already there, hair up, in a neat bun, wrapped in one of my aprons, humming gently as she prepared breakfast. For a moment, I froze. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She wasn't doing anything malicious. But seeing her in my space, moving around so comfortably, so confidently, as if this home belonged to her more than it did to me, pricked something raw inside me. "Oh, Mom," she chirped when she noticed me. "I hope you don't mind. I wanted to surprise everyone with breakfast." Her smile was bright, innocent even, and yet it landed like a weight pressed on an already bruised spot. "I don't mind," I managed. She giggled and opened the fridge. "I'll take over cooking a bit more so you can rest. You do so much already." Rest. The word tasted like pity. Before I could respond, Nathan walked in and immediately wrapped his arms around Lily from behind, kissing her cheek. "This looks amazing," he murmured, completely enchanted. My presence didn't interrupt them. I was background noise. My husband came down moments later and joined in the admiration. "This girl is a blessing," he said, patting Lily's shoulder. "We're so lucky to have you." Lucky. I swallowed the bitterness rising in my throat. They never said that to me. Not once in decades. They appreciated my work, yes, my sacrifices, my care. But being appreciated for simply existing in their lives, no. That grace was reserved for her. I sat at the table quietly and watched them laugh, chatter, and pass dishes around. No one asked if I wanted seconds. No one asked how I slept. They didn't even notice that I hadn't eaten much. I told myself not to be dramatic, not to let emotions cloud my judgment, not to read too much into normal family interactions. But the truth was simple and sharp. They treated her with affection. They treated me with expectation. After breakfast, they planned their lakeside cafe trip. I waited for the invitation I knew wouldn't come, and it didn't. They left me at home, just as Lily predicted. When the door closed and the house fell silent, I stood in the living room, surrounded by the echoes of their laughter. The quiet felt heavier than usual, thick enough to choke on. I wandered through the rooms, touching the furniture I polished for decades, the photographs I hung with pride, the walls I painted with dreams of a future where we'd all grow closer. And yet here I was, standing in the middle of my own home like an outsider. I didn't cry. I didn't break. I just stood there numb. Then my phone rang. Emily. "Mum, are you home?" My voice shook only slightly. "Yes. Can you come over? I need to talk to you." Her tone wasn't casual. It wasn't light. Something was wrong. Without hesitation, I grabbed my purse and keys. The short drive to her house felt longer than usual. My chest tightened with questions I was too afraid to ask. When she opened the door, her eyes were red, her expression twisted with worry. "Emily," I whispered. "What happened?" She stepped aside and motioned for me to come in. The moment the door closed, she broke. "Mum, I think something's going on with Jacob," her husband, my older son. My heart clenched. "What do you mean?" She wiped her eyes. "He's been hiding things, messages, calls, money transfers I didn't know about. He's been taking days off work without telling me. And when I asked him what's going on," her voice cracked, "he said I'm overreacting and imagining things." I felt cold all over, not because I suspected infidelity, though the signs were troubling, but because the pattern was too familiar. Dismissive, secretive, defensive, just like how they dismissed me. I placed a hand on her shoulder. "Emily, listen to me. Whatever this is, you're not imagining it. Trust your instincts." She broke down, burying her face into her palms. "Mum, what if he's leaving me? What if he's planning something, the way he talks to me lately? He's not the man I married." I sat beside her and pulled her into my arms, stroking her hair gently the way I used to when she was pregnant with their first child. "Emily, you're not alone," I whispered. "We'll figure this out, one step at a time." The more she spoke, the more alarm built inside me, because beneath the fear and confusion, there were deeper cracks. Cracks my son had been hiding from everyone. Financial decisions, strange absences, avoidance, emotional distance. When she finally calmed down, I helped her stand and poured her a glass of water. She leaned against the counter, exhausted. "Mum," she said softly, "why does it feel like our family is falling apart?" Her question hit me like a blow, because it was. Not all at once, not in a dramatic explosion, but slowly, piece by piece, Respect eroding, attention shifting, loyalties changing, truths being hidden. Maybe, I said quietly. We've all been pretending everything is fine for too long. Emily closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks again. Mum, I'm scared. I squeezed her hand. Then, let me be strong for you. I may have been invisible in this family, but not to you, and I'm not going anywhere. For a long moment, we stood in silence, two women connected by hurt, bound by the fractures caused by the men they loved. Then Emily whispered something I wasn't prepared for. Mum, what if whatever's happening with Jacob is connected to Lily? The world seemed to tilt under me. What do you mean? She swallowed hard. Because they've been talking, a lot, behind my back. My pulse started pounding. Emily, tell me everything. When Emily said those words, they've been talking a lot behind my back. A slow, icy wave washed over me. For a moment, I just stared at her, unable to breathe, unable to gather my thoughts into anything coherent. My son and Lily? Talking privately? Secretly? The idea felt wrong, unsettling, and yet, the more I thought about it, the more something in my gut twisted with a strange, uncomfortable recognition. What exactly do you mean? I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Emily crossed her arms over her chest as if trying to hold herself together. She walked toward the window and stared outside, unable to look at me. I saw a call log, she said quietly. Not by accident. I was trying to understand why Jacob's been distant, and I saw her name. He called her late at night, more than once. My stomach tightened. Maybe it was about something harmless. Maybe Lily needed... No. Emily cut in, shaking her head. These weren't quick calls. Some were over half an hour, and he deleted them. All of them except the ones the phone synced automatically. The room suddenly felt too small, too suffocating. I leaned against the kitchen counter, gripping the edge to steady myself. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This wasn't some innocent exchange. This was secrecy. Have you talked to Jacob about this? I asked. Emily let out a short, bitter laugh. He denied everything, said I was paranoid, said I was creating drama, just like always. She wiped her cheeks angrily. Mum, I'm not stupid. I reached for her hands. I know you're not, and you're not overreacting. Her voice softened, trembling. I feel like I'm losing him. I squeezed her hands gently. Then we're going to figure this out. Together. But even as I said it, a sinking feeling formed in the pit of my stomach. Something deeper was going on. Something that had been quietly weaving its way through our family long before either of us noticed. Mum, Emily said again, softer this time. There's more. My chest tightened. What else? She walked to the drawer beside the fridge, pulled something out and placed it on the table between us. A small envelope, neatly sealed. My heart dropped. What is that? I found it in his coat pocket, she whispered. I wasn't looking for anything. I just grabbed his jacket to wash it and it fell out. I hesitated before picking it up, my fingers trembling as I opened it. Inside was a receipt, a bank withdrawal, a large one, far too large for any normal expense. When did he withdraw this? I asked. 3 days ago. And he didn't tell you? She shook her head. My mind raced. My son had been distant, secretive, defensive. He had been talking to Lily behind Emily's back, and now he was withdrawing large sums of money without explanation. It felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, staring down into something dark, realizing the ground beneath us had been cracking long before we ever felt it. Emily, why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked softly, her eyes filled with tears. Because I didn't want to burden you. You've already been left out enough. I didn't want to make things worse for you. That broke something in me. I stepped toward her and pulled her into my arms again, holding her tightly. Sweetheart, don't ever think you burden me. You're the only one who even sees me anymore. She clung to me, her tears soaking into my shoulder. Mum, I'm scared that something is happening between them. I don't want to believe it, but I can't ignore what I've seen. I closed my eyes. This wasn't just suspicion now. This was fear mixed with evidence. And it wasn't just her marriage cracking. It was my family structure. The very foundation I had built my life around. Let's take this one step at a time, I said quietly. We need more answers before we confront anyone. Emily pulled away slightly, wiping her face. I don't want to snoop. I just want the truth. And you deserve it, I said. We both do. For a long moment we sat in silence. The ticking of the clock suddenly sounded painfully loud. Mum, she whispered, have you noticed anything strange with Lily? Anything that felt off? I thought back. The secret glances, the hushed phone calls she ended quickly, her sudden closeness to my family, her overly affectionate behaviour toward my husband and Nathan, her ease, her confidence, her comfort in a home she didn't grow up in, and the way she always seemed to know things before they were said. The way she inserted herself into family dynamics as if she already belonged more than I did. But the thought of my sons' wives being at the centre of something bigger, something possibly harmful, made my skin crawl. I don't want to jump to conclusions, I murmured. But yes, something has felt off. Emily exhaled shakily. I knew it. I tried to offer reassurance. But that doesn't mean anything yet. There might be explanations. She nodded, even though doubt clouded her face. I didn't want to suspect Lily. I didn't want to believe she could be involved in something so destructive. But the pieces, those jagged little pieces, were starting to align into a shape I didn't like. Mum, Emily whispered suddenly, looking at me with wide, fearful eyes. What if the money has something to do with her? What if they're planning something? Her words sent a chill straight down my spine. What would they plan? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She shook her head helplessly. I don't know, but he's pulling away from me, and she's getting closer to everyone else. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's everything. I rubbed my forehead, trying to push down the rising panic. I couldn't afford to lose myself in fear, not when my daughter-in-law was breaking down in front of me. Not when my own son might be slipping into something unforgivable. Emily, I said, steadying my voice, we need to watch, quietly, carefully, no accusations yet. Not until we know more. She nodded, and then her phone buzzed. She picked it up, glanced at the screen, and her face turned pale. It's Jacob, she whispered. He wants to know where I am. A strange heaviness settled in my chest. Tell him you're out running errands, I said. Don't tell him you're with me. She hesitated, then typed quickly. When she set the phone down, she looked at me with trembling hands. Mum, what if this is only the beginning? I took a deep breath, forcing calm into my voice, even though dread coiled tightly inside me. Then we'll face whatever comes, I said softly, but we'll face it together. Because whether I liked it or not, the quiet storm brewing inside our family had just shifted into something far more dangerous and far more personal. That evening, the house felt heavy, as if every unsaid word hung in the air, waiting to fall. I found Ethan sitting alone in the living room, his head in his hands, the weight of the entire week pressing down on him. When he heard my footsteps, he didn't look up. He just said quietly, Mum, I don't know how to fix this anymore. I sat beside him, my knees trembling. Ethan, I whispered, you can't fix something you're pretending not to see? He finally met my eyes, red, exhausted, pleading. Before he could respond, Emily stepped out from the hallway. She looked nervous but determined. Her voice didn't shake this time. There's something I need to say. To both of you. Ethan stood up, frustrated. "Emily, not tonight." "No." She raised her hand. "Tonight is exactly when it needs to be said." She took a deep breath. "I wasn't angry because you spent time with your mother. I was angry because I felt like you never wanted to build anything with me. Every time I tried to make our own traditions, our own choices, our own life, it felt like I was fighting for a place in your heart you had already given away." Her voice cracked. "I wasn't trying to take you from your mum. I was begging you to see me." Ethan stared at her, stunned. And in that moment, something inside me softened. I had been so focused on my pain that I never once considered hers. I took a step toward her. "Emily," I said gently, "you don't have to fight for a place. Not with me. Not in this family." Her eyes filled instantly, quiet, fragile tears. "I just wanted to feel chosen," she whispered. Ethan turned toward her, his voice barely audible. "You are chosen. I just didn't realize I was making you feel otherwise." He pulled her into a shaky embrace, and this time, she didn't pull away. For the first time in months, the house didn't feel divided. It felt wounded, but healing. And as I stood there watching them, my son and the woman who loved him, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart, even just a little, then sharing it was worth every word. Life isn't always gentle, and families aren't always easy. But I hope my journey reminds someone out there that healing is still possible. Thank you for watching.